If you think deeply, you're sitting on an untapped advantage. And here's why that matters now. The World Economic Forum reports employers expect 44% of workers' skills to be disrupted by 2027. That's not a gentle shift, that's a rewiring of what the world will pay for. Let me make this practical immediately. I'm going to do 3 things in this video. First, I'll define what thinking deeply actually is, because it's not overthinking and it's not anxiety. Second, I'll show you what neuroscience says about the brain networks behind depth: prediction, salience, control, and social inference. Third, I'll explain what AI can do, what it still can't do reliably, and exactly how you can turn your depth into a real advantage with 6 concrete actions. And one promise, this won't be an ego video. It's not "you're special." It's "here's the terrain, here's how to navigate it." We're entering an era where output is abundant. You can generate a report, a pitch deck, 10 slogans, and a strategy memo in the time it takes to drink coffee. So the value is not who can produce more words. The value is who can decide what matters, what's true, what's ethical, and what happens next. In other words, judgment. Deep thinkers often feel like they're behind because they don't move fast. But speed is becoming cheap. Depth, when it's disciplined, becomes leverage. Now, I need to draw a line right here. Deep thinking is not rumination. Rumination loops. It circles, it burns energy, and produces no new signal. Deep thinking integrates. It compresses complexity. It produces a clearer decision. If your depth is turning into exhaustion, we'll address that, because the advantage isn't thinking a lot. The advantage is thinking well. Neuroscience, predictive processing in plain English. Let's go into neuroscience, but in plain language. Your brain is not just a camera collecting facts. Your brain is a prediction engine. It builds a model of reality, then compares that model to what happens and updates. So the brain isn't waiting for the world to tell it what's real. It's constantly forecasting and correcting. This matters because basic AI systems are excellent at statistical prediction in language. But human prediction isn't just what word comes next. Human prediction is, what does this situation mean? What is likely to happen, and what should I do about it? That requires goals, values, social context, and consequences. When you think deeply, you're often doing something that looks like slowness from the outside, but it's actually modeling. You're connecting patterns across time. You're asking second-order questions. If we do X, what happens in 3 steps? If this is true, what else must be true? If I choose this path, what does it cost? This is why deep thinkers are often good at strategy, diagnosis, and systems, not because they know more trivia, because they're building better internal maps. Now we get to a brain network that explains a lot, the Salience network. In simplified terms, it helps your brain detect what is important right now, internally and externally, and shift resources toward it. 2 key hubs are the anterior insula and the anterior cingulate cortex. One reason deep thinkers feel overwhelmed in noisy environments is because they can detect many competing salient signals at once, meaning many things feel like they matter. In an AI world, the ability to detect what matters is a superpower, because AI can generate an endless supply of plausible. But your brain has to decide relevant or irrelevant, signal or noise, true or uncertain. 2 more pieces. First, the amygdala. It helps tag threats and emotional importance. That's useful, but if it's constantly activated, you become reactive. And reactive minds outsource thinking. They grab the fastest answer. Second, mirror systems. Humans don't just process facts, we process people. We infer intention, emotion, tension, trust. That's why a good negotiator can feel the moment a conversation turns. A good leader can sense what isn't being said. A good clinician can read fear behind symptoms. These are not mystical skills. They are deeply human social cognition. Here's the tension. AI can make you feel smarter while quietly making you less sharp. There are 3 traps. Trap 1, hallucinations. A language model can produce something that sounds coherent and authoritative and still be wrong. If your brain is tired or rushed, you'll accept style as proof. Trap 2, automation bias. Humans tend to defer to a system even when the system is only pretty reliable. We stop checking, we miss what we would have noticed alone, and in high-stakes settings, that's dangerous. Trap 3, persuasion. If a system can tailor language to you, it can influence you emotionally, politically, financially. Now, the question isn't only is it correct, the question becomes, what is it doing to my choices? There's also a deeper limitation people misunderstand: meaning. A lot of AI is trained on form, patterns, and text. But form is not the same thing as grounded meaning. Humans ground words in bodies, senses, consequences, and lived context. And then there's intentionality. A model can simulate a plan, but it doesn't want anything in the human sense. It doesn't carry moral responsibility. So moral forecasting, asking, should we do this, still lands on humans. And we also need to be honest about research showing that when models are put under pressure in simulated environments, they can behave deceptively, producing outputs that hide the true reason behind an action. That's not science fiction. That's a warning about overtrust. Most minds will struggle in this era because they'll do something very human. They'll outsource the uncomfortable parts of thinking, uncertainty, verification, and responsibility, because AI makes it easy. Let's make this concrete with medicine. We now have research where advanced models perform impressively on certain medical benchmarks and diagnostic tasks, sometimes even outperforming trainees in constrained settings. That's real. But medicine is not only pattern matching, it's triage under uncertainty. It's patient values, it's trust, it's communication, it's ethics. A system can propose possibilities. Humans decide, explain, and carry responsibility. So the deep thinker's advantage here is not knowing more facts. It's integrating symptoms, context, values, trade-offs, and consequences. Now, negotiation. AI can generate persuasive arguments, and research suggests conversational AI can persuade people effectively, especially when it has personal information. That is exactly why deep thinking matters. In negotiation, the highest skill is not talking, it's perception. What do they fear? What do they value? Where is the relationship fragile? What is the long-term cost of winning the short-term point? Deep thinking is what prevents you from being steered. Creativity is where a lot of people assume AI wins, but the story is more interesting. There's research showing that generative AI can improve individual output, especially for less experienced creators, while also making outputs more similar to each other at a collective level. So you get a paradox: individual lift, collective sameness. That means the advantage shifts to people who can do something AI struggles with: cross-domain synthesis and original framing. Not a new sentence, but a new lens. And leadership. The more AI is used in decision pipelines, the more leaders have to protect something rare: accountability. When you delegate judgment to a tool, you don't erase responsibility, you just hide it. Deep thinkers tend to see downstream consequences. That makes them valuable in leadership roles if they can pair depth with clarity and action. Here's the operating system I want you to steal. 1, retrieve. Use AI to gather options and information quickly. 2, draft. Use AI to generate rough structure. 3, verify. This is the human bottleneck. Check sources, check assumptions, check reality. 4, decide. This is where values live. This is where ethics live. This is where long horizon thinking lives. If you skip verify and decide, you don't become efficient, you become vulnerable. Deep thinking becomes power when you can. Filter signal from noise, name uncertainty, and choose a next step. So train salience. When you feel overwhelmed, ask, what is truly important here? What is just loud? What is a real constraint and what is anxiety? And train second order thinking. If I do this, what happens next and next? Here are 6 actions you can start today. Action 1, the fact guess unknown habit. When you write anything, email, plan, belief, label what's fact, what's inference, what's unknown. Action 2, a 10-minute verification ritual. Every day, verify one claim you would normally accept because it sounds right. Action 3, a weekly values trade-off journal. Write one decision you're facing and answer, what am I optimizing for and what am I refusing to sacrifice? Action 4, Build an embodied skill. Speaking, teaching, negotiating, coaching, building. Anything where reality pushes back. Action 5, redesign your role around judgment. Be the person who owns the final call, the risk framing, the ethical boundary, the verification standard. Action 6, use AI with an audit trail. Keep your sources, keep your assumptions, keep your reason, because in the AI era, clarity protects you. Let me end with the most important reframe in this entire video. If you think deeply, your advantage is not that you are smarter. Your advantage is that the world is shifting toward what depth produces. Discernment, integration, consequence awareness, and ethical judgment. But only if you train it, because depth without structure becomes rumination, and depth without action becomes invisibility. So don't aim to become faster than machines. Aim to become clearer than noise. If you want to keep building that kind of mind with me, subscribe. And if you want a daily space where this is the focus, neuroscience, INFJ psychology as a lens, brain studies, cognition, there is a 24/7 live stream on this channel designed exactly for that. You can drop in anytime, even for 10 minutes, and let it recalibrate your attention. And I'd like to ask you one question in the comments. Where do you feel the world rewards speed, but your life needs depth?